If I could go back in time to before I started at UMPI, I would schedule a call with today's guest. Seriously, I discovered through our conversation that I could have leveled up my bachelor's degree with only one or two more classes, and I didn't know because I hadn't really discussed it with her. If you're considering going to UMPI, but you're just a little confused about all the transfer credits and the courses that you might need to take, you're definitely going to want to tune in to my conversation today with Christie. Christie Williams is the founder of Plotted Path. She's an UMPI graduate who has successfully helped hundreds, and I mean hundreds of students map out their degree journey. If you've checked out the UMPI subreddit or the Discord, you might have seen Christy in there answering questions, helping people tweak their degree paths. And that's why I was so excited to speak to her today, because I think she's got the inside scoop on what courses to take to get through UMPI quickly and efficiently. In our conversation, we talked about her experience as an UMPI student, how she helps students plan their degrees, and how just a few minor tweaks can mean adding one or even two more minors to your degree with barely any additional work. If that sounds interesting, let's get into the conversation. I'm just going to jump right in with my first question, which is, so many people listening, I think, are considering UMPI, but they're just not really sure if it's right for them. So what was your big sort of aha moment where you realized this is what I should be doing? This is the school I should be going to?
Yeah, the reason I loved UMPI is because it's part of a larger state system, which I think is really important in this sort of day and age of higher education to be associated with a school that has a strong reputation even in their local community. And so that was a big driver for me. And then just really understanding why they deliver the Your Pace program. I got the honor of visiting Presque Isle earlier this spring in May and going to the commencement ceremony. And it's a really small town. So imagine trying to attract a student body to a small town really close to the Canadian border.
Yeah.
When school is in session in the winter, it makes it a little bit difficult to market that as a really exciting opportunity. So I think for me, once I understood the driver behind why UMPI delivers the Your Pace program, that was a big deal. And then beyond that, I love to write. So being able
Oh, wow.
to really put my own touch on things and show how I received the information I was learning and demonstrate my actual knowledge was a huge driver for me. I have ADHD and I am really good at the things I'm really good at and dread the things I dread very, very strongly. So for
That is
me,
relatable.
yes, yeah, thinking about, oh gosh, am I going to have to take an assessment? And what if I forget everything? And what if it's a busy day at work and I'm distracted by my dogs barking or my kids coming into the room? Those things were just like non-starters at the end of the day. And I have my professional and human resources certification, and I had to do that through proctored testing. And I actually went to a test facility because I was so nervous about all of those things. So I couldn't imagine having to go to an actual facility for proctoring every single time I needed to take an exam. And for that reason alone, UMPI was the right choice for me. And I know people say UMPI. I work in higher ed tech full time as an HR leader, and I'm so used to the literal letter acronyms. We very rarely call a school by its sort of like local nickname or abbreviated nickname. So I often say UMPI. That doesn't mean I don't know that others say UMPI. We'll probably use them interchangeably in this interview.
I will do my best to say UMPI for at least the rest of this conversation.
It's okay. It won't confuse me. It might confuse someone else, but now that we've covered that, I think we'll be good.
Yeah. So, stepping back a little further, even, how did you make the decision to go back to school?
Yeah,
What at the point in your life?
for me, it was because I'm an HR leader and I've been able to really grow my career and through relationships and meeting the right people at the right times and them knowing me and seeing the way I deliver professionally. it's always been the way I've grown. And I started to get really nervous about 3 or 4 years ago as I took on the talent portion of my company more heavily. And then I'm in LinkedIn, I'm in LinkedIn Recruiter, I'm in applicant tracking systems, and I'm seeing the jobs I'm posting, the jobs others are posting, where it's like, you must have this degree, you must have that degree. And for me, I felt like if someone was looking at me on paper and they didn't know me and they didn't see how I deliver professionally, I was going to be up against a lot of folks with master's degrees. And someone on my team at that time was going back and doing their master's, and they did their master's in person at Cornell, which is incredible. And I was so delighted to be able to facilitate that opportunity. But that was not a reality for me. I have a family at home and a full-time job and a lot of other responsibilities. So for me, I was like, what is the fastest way? And I know that, fast is relative to each person, but what is the fastest, quickest path to getting me into a master's program? And so I started naturally looking at WGU because it's so heavily advertised, and a couple of other programs. And thankfully, through that, I stumbled upon UMPI one night on the Sophia Learning subreddit, and I just like lit up. I was like, this is it. I applied immediately. I was like already applying. I had done my rabbit hole dig until like 1 a.m. that night. And I felt like, yeah, this will work for me. And so I put myself on a pretty quick timeline to get all of my prerequisite work done, to transfer in for the bachelor's, finish my bachelor's, and then moved on to my master's a couple of sessions after that.
Wow. You are, I should preface this for everyone watching that you are the master of planning for UMPI. Everybody on Reddit, there's a Discord where people just rave about the work you do. So did you know that going in? Were you already sort of figuring out the credits then, or did you just go in and apply and that's that?
When I applied, I had already started some things at Sophia because I was thinking that I would attend WGU most likely. And I knew WGU rules were a little different. I'll share that with this interview. They require that you have all of those credits done prior to starting at WGU. UMPI does allow you to transfer in things along the way, though I was finished before I started. That was also a big driver. Like, oh, what if it's the holidays and I can't finish things in time? I knew I had a little bit of flexibility to play with. I am a path of least resistance girl. Like the quickest to the finish line is how I want to get there. And usually that involves me building some sort of scaffolding around what I'm doing to make sure that I can achieve that goal. And when I do that, I'm always thinking about how I can help other people. That's the common thread through my entire career, through my entire life. I'm a helper. I want to make sure that things are easy and clear and just the most direct path to the finish line for anyone who's absorbing anything that I'm putting out into the world. So as I was going through this, I joined Facebook groups. I was on the subreddit. And back then, and this was 2024, that wasn't that long ago, there weren't a lot of us. There were not a lot of owls who had done this and were really publicly posting a lot of information about it. And so I guess in a way I saw an opportunity. And at the time, I didn't see it as a potential business opportunity. I just saw an opportunity to help people and make it really clear and give people access to higher education, which is a huge passion of mine. I just said, okay, well, I'm going to put a spreadsheet together because that's always what I do to solve any problem I have. And then people were asking questions and I just knew the answers. I had already done all of this research myself, and I just felt selfish to hold that to myself. So I put out a really big free spreadsheet to folks to be able to use. And what I found over time is there were a lot of people that loved that free resource, but they might be coming in with credits from other universities and they didn't know how that would play into their overall goals. And I developed my business, Plotted Path, because there was a need. People are like, I don't want to have to wait for a transfer audit from the university to know. And I'm like, great, I can actually help you with that. I understand how these things are mapping. And sure, maybe I'm not 100% accurate all of the time, but I'm at least 90% accurate, I would say, on anyone's degree plan. And then the others, I'm very transparent. Like, hey, it could come in and cover this, it might not come in and cover that though. So just know you may need to do this alternatively. But I try to get it as accurate as possible, even though there are a lot of moving pieces right now.
I mean, with all the moving parts, I feel like you may be the one person who knows their system better than they do. You're the you're the
Sometimes
best planner.
sometimes it does feel that way, and that's not a knock on them. You know, the
Yeah,
advisors
absolutely.
there are their job is to know the university. Their job is to know that this class at UMPI covers this requirement. And their job isn't to tell you what you could be transferring in from an ACE platform like sophialearningstudy.com. That's not their job. And I'm fully aware of that. And I'm grateful that I'm able to fill that gap and just give people some additional supports and resources to go and conquer these things prior to starting at the university, and then knowing exactly what they need to be doing at the university, because that is just as important. If you go in and you're like, I think I need this class or that class, you might end up taking things you didn't actually need, or things that don't help you towards the actual degree that you're pursuing.
Yeah. So, for someone who's never really heard of degree planning, how do you explain your process? And is this only for people who already have credits and they're trying to finish up a degree, or is it also helpful for someone who's just starting from square one?
Yeah, it's great for both. And I have two plans that work for either of those scenarios. I have just my basic standard plan that's for the from scratch folks who want a really clear and more strategic pathway to getting their degree. I do have the free spreadsheet that I put out, which is, it's a helpful tool. It's a marketing tool. It brings people to me to do these more custom plans, but it's incredibly high level. It's, general ed, a couple of degrees. It doesn't encompass every degree because some are more commonly used than others, but it is very high level. And if you came to me and you wanted a degree from scratch, I would probably not just have you doing Sophia Learning only, for example. I would say
Mm.
you could do some upper levels through Coursera certifications, and then you've both obtained a certification as well as college credits. And I get a lot more strategic in the one-to-one. And then for my folks that need the pro plan, um, my pro plan really covers all of those credits that you might be transferring in. And I want to say this, people get really in their heads about not finishing college. And at this point, you do not need to be nervous about that, or, nervous about the fact that you feel behind your peers. Like, that is just your own imposter syndrome talking, truly. There are so many people like you and I, Melanie, who decided to go back. They had credits from 5 or 6 different schools and
Yeah.
all of these. And I don't want to call them failed attempts, but attempts that got interrupted by life is really what happens for most people. They started college and then they had to go get a job, and that job paid well, and they just decided to stay on that track. Or they started in the military and they have a ton of military credits, but they don't know how to translate that into a degree. So those are the folks that I really love helping on the pro plan, because they do have a baseline knowledge of what it's like to go to school. But going to UMPI is different than going and sitting in a classroom, multiple hours a week and trying to figure out when you're going to schedule and finish your exam and all of those
Yeah.
things. So it's just a much different approach. So in the pro plan, I would call it kind of like a pseudo advisor. I do not work for the university, but I do understand the university and how the university works. So it's really like a helpful extra voice to have in the process. So you're both getting a plan as well as a person who you can come to if something feels misaligned or something doesn't quite feel right, or maybe your advisor mentioned you need this class and you're like, well, Christie didn't say that I would need that class. And sometimes it's just they put the plans in the wrong order, or they put your minors in different order than we had originally planned for. And it's just a quick change, and then everything's kind of back on track. So
Amazing. So you've talked a little bit about credits, CLEP,
mhm.
Coursera, military credits. There are so
Yeah.
many options, but I think some people come to this and they are interested in the school, but they didn't even realize that there are opportunities to earn credits before they start, or even while they're doing it.
Yes.
In this case of UMPI. So what are some of the options that people have in that area?
Yeah, there are a lot of options. So of course, if you're coming to UMPI and you already have prior college, that's wonderful. As long as you had a C minus or better in a course from an accredited school, regionally accredited university, community college, or local college, those credits almost definitely are going to transfer in. There are a few exceptions. Some foundations level English or math may not transfer in because it's not college level, right? It's more of a foundations level. But
Yeah.
for the most part, for the grand majority of credits, they're going to come in. And it doesn't matter how old they are. And that's another thing that people are like, oh, my credits are from 20 years ago. That's okay. They'll still accept them.
Yeah.
That said, when they come in, they may not cover the requirements needed for your degree in the ways that you need them to. So it might come in as just elective credits. And I see that pretty frequently, especially with military credits. But UMPI is very friendly with ACE. So the American Council on Education has an accrediting body that looks at the credits from a bunch of different vendors. Sophia Learning, study.com, Coursera. UPI Study is a newer one that's kind of popped up on my radar recently. Straighter Line, and then the military's credits, so the Joint Service Transcript, also runs through ACE for their accrediting body. So there are a lot of different places that you can go and obtain some credits prior to starting UMPI from. And a lot of us did 90 credits before starting UMPI or more. There's no cap. There's no cap. You can transfer in as many credits as you want. There's no cap to how many you transfer in. So sometimes, I have folks that get really creative and they say, oh, well, if I did study.com, I could take one class at UMPI and everything else at study.com for a psychology minor, for example. So they might end up transferring in 120 or 130 credits because they want to be able to obtain some additional minors throughout their path. That's really it. Like, there are so many different ways and places. CLEP exams, another way that you could do it. You can go to modernstates.org, get a free voucher to take the CLEP exam. You could cover your English 1 and 2 with one exam. There are math and history and some science credits, and just a lot of different ways that you can package your plan, both before starting and at the university, to really alleviate the time and the financial spend, because these are all self-paced. Anything that you would be doing through these, they're going to be self-paced.
You pointed out a great distinction there, and it's something that I ran into when I was starting at UMPI, which is that I had a lot of credits, probably close to enough to graduate or to finish a degree. But when they transferred in, I was missing some of those core electives. And so by using your spreadsheet and planning, I was able to just fill in some of the gaps using Sophia before I started. So I needed a science. I didn't have a science. I had enough credits, but I just didn't have that specific credit I needed. And some of those, especially the gen ed courses, are great to fill in before you get there.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they really are. And, there are some shifts and changes that UMPI is implementing to align their online course curriculums to their on-campus curriculums. And, that always scares people at first. But the truth is, like, they're doing it for the greater good. If an advisor only needs to understand how one layout of a Bachelor of Business Administration runs, or how one layout of a Bachelor of Arts in Accounting runs, that makes their job easier, which means it's going to be a lot clearer for you too, what you need to take and where you need to take things. So coming this fall, there are some changes, and would be fall of 2026. There are some changes to the general ed lineup. They're very positive changes, actually. You don't actually have to do a language anymore, which is a huge deterrent. Everyone just dreads taking Spanish or French over at Sophia. But I promise, if I got through it, you can get through it. I kind of sound like Peggy Hill from King of the Hill speaking Spanish with my Southern accent. But, I like the new way that the general ed is laid out, because it gives you a lot more choice. You can say, do you want to take American government, or do you want to take psychology? That's your choice. Do you want to take U.S. history, or do you want to take sociology? There are different things that can fulfill different areas. The even better part about it is the way that the new general ed is laid out. It actually aligns more to what I typically see coming in from someone who has already done a couple of years at another college. So, if you're at a community college, for example, you have a lot of options to fulfill whatever your humanities requirement would be, or your history requirement, et cetera. So I do like the new way it's laid out. Anytime there's change, people get a little bit apprehensive and nervous that it's going to impact them. I think the university has done a really good job of staggering the changes. We could work a little bit more on the proactive communication piece, but I do my best to kind of keep up to date on things and keep people in the loop as they're developing out their plan with me. So they know, like, hey, if you start after this date, you're going to be subject to these changes. But if you start
Yeah.
before this date, this plan is good, it's concrete, go for it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I think even with all of this planning, people still sometimes get stuck. So, what are the things that you see happen most often that kind of catches students up and help maybe causes them to waste some time or money or just the momentum to keep going?
Yeah, I think for a lot of students, it's just not knowing. And I, as many folks as I work with on the front end of their degree, a lot of folks find me while they're already in their degree. And every time I think to myself, gosh, I wish you had talked to me 6 months ago. Because 6 months ago, we would have had all of this done before you ever started, and you wouldn't be in the middle of a session going, wait, I have to do 20 classes? I thought I was only going to have to do 10, because that is a huge misconception that you only have to do 10 classes at UMPI.
Yeah.
And that is true. That is the minimum requirement of courses that you have to do at the university. However, you also have to fulfill your degree requirements. And so what a lot of people miss is that key component. You must fulfill your general education. You must fulfill your specific degree requirements. Even if you're taking a Bachelor of Liberal Studies, which is a much lighter kind of create your own degree in a way, you still have to fulfill a minor. Sometimes it makes sense to fulfill two minors. I actually just talked to someone a couple of days ago. He had used my sheet to put his plan together for free, and he didn't consult me on the front end to build anything, which is fine. That's why it's out there. I want people to be able to use that resource. But he came to me and he told me all the classes he took. And I said, he was like, I have to do one more class, but I don't know what class I should do. Can I just send you a tip? Will you just look over this and make sure, just check behind me, essentially? And I said, well, if you take this one class, you'll also have a project management minor, and you won't have to do any extra work. It's just one more class and you'll have that minor done. And he was like, I would have never known that. Like, if he hadn't come to me, he would have never known that. And that's the thing I love about doing one-to-one is I can get once I know your story and what your goals are and where you want to take this degree next, whether that's rolling up to a master's. There's a lot you can do in undergrad to roll up to the Master of Arts in Organizational Leadership or into the Master of Science in Business. I want to know those things when I can. And so I think that, I hate to say, I think the mistake people make is not talking to me. But I mean, it kind of is.
I mean,
I know that that sounds terrible, and it's not because I'm full of myself at all. It's because I just understand it all well enough to make sure that you're saving yourself time and money at the end of the day. And I realize that there's a cost to my actual service, but I try to keep that really affordable considering the amount of like time, money, and spend I'm going to save someone on the back end. And it does take my time too. So it's not like I do this and I really can't do this in my sleep. I used to feel at a time before UMPI changed a bunch of things like, oh yeah, I could just rattle it off. But no, I really do have to be intentional and really look through things and make sure that we're lining people up at the right times and right places. So
yeah. Look, there's a reason you're so busy. And I think, you said you feel like you could do it in your sleep. I imagine with all these, you have these inner workings of how everything fits together. I'm imagining you having dreams at night of people's college plans and shifting this over here and that over there.
I joke that it's like my daily New York Times crossword puzzle because it is like solving a puzzle to me. When someone sends me their transcripts, I take that information, I compare it to what it would transfer in at the university, and then I'm like mapping that back into a plan. And it's like, move this here, move that there. Oh, and if you did this one more thing at study.com, you could have this minor as well. So I'm looking at it way more strategically than someone at the university is because they're looking at what degree did you tell us you want to take? And here's what you need to finish that. And of course, sometimes someone says, I just want the BBA in marketing. And I'm like, boop, 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 here's what you need, But I love when I get to be a little more strategic and say, for 2 more classes, you could have this or that. And then it's their choice, of course, but it maps it out nicely.
That's great. That's great. Now I'm wishing you and I had more of a conversation before I started.
How many minors did you leave on the table,
I
Melanie?
I only did one minor. Oh
Oh,
my
you definitely should
goodness.
have done two minors. Yeah, we could have. My favorite plan to build is a Bachelor of Liberal Studies with a management and a project management minor,
Mm.
and the roll ups to the Master of Arts in Organizational Leadership. Because for 10 classes at UMPI, you can have your BLS and the two minors done, as well as the three roll ups to the masters if you decide to go into an MALL. So that is, in my opinion, probably the fastest and the fastest path for the most robust return. You know, you get a
Mm-hmm.
couple of minors in the
Mm-hmm.
mix, you get exposure to, I know you're in project management and have your PMP. I think everyone should have exposure to project management because it
Yeah.
touches every part of our lives, whether you're a parent or you're a coach or you're a full-time employee, you know, like all of these things that kind of come into these project management mentality, they can work for every job. There's not a job out there I can think of really that doesn't include some form of project management. So
Yeah. Yeah. Which makes it great when you're completing those classes and they're asking you to reflect on something in your life and to apply
yes,
one of the techniques to your life. It's real life.
yes, it's real life. It
Yeah.
is, and the courses in that particular curriculum, I think, are great because they do let you use your own personal experience and they let
Mhm.
you kind of bring this back to something that might be impactful in your day to day. That's one of the reasons I really loved the Master of Arts in Organizational Leadership is everything that I was doing in that. I was like, great, I need to do this project at work anyway. So I'm just going to use what I was going to do at work and kind of translate that into this area of study that I'm doing in my MALL. So it
Yeah.
was like the best double dip ever for me when I did the
So
master's.
perfect.
Yes.
Wow. That's a good strategy. At this point, you've seen so many students, probably hundreds, crossing the finish line at UMPI. Do you have a favorite success story? Maybe someone who thought that it was going to be impossible or that there was just no way they could do it?
I have a couple of success stories that stand out to me. One person, I had commented on someone's TikTok, and I've kind of intentionally not put out a lot of content on TikTok. What I found is sometimes it doesn't bring me people who are really serious about this. They just think this is a fly by night solution to a problem, and it's not. It's a lot of work, and I think that's a big misconception for people that like this is an easy degree, and it's not an easy degree. You're still doing a tremendous amount of work. You're just taking a more streamlined approach to getting that work completed and doing things in more of a your paced fashion. So I think that's one big thing that happens. But I had someone who reached out to me who found me through a TikTok comment that I'd made, and this was last fall. And our first conversation was August 25th of last fall, and she was starting from scratch. And she's just said, if you tell me what I need to do, I will go and do it. And this is my full time commitment through the spring of next year. That's, you know, she had some time off work, had received a severance package and an exit at her company, was, you know, pretty elevated individual in her in her career, and just said, this is going to hold me back. If I do not get this degree now, it's going to hold me back. And I, on August 25th, made her plan, told her exactly what she needed to do. She started in the January session of this past session, so in 2026. And by mid February, she had emailed me and said, I'm done. Like, I finished
Wow.
everything. She had done all of her pre work at Sophia in about 3 months, transferred that all in and finished everything out. So it was actually, she's probably one of the folks who ran at the similar speed I did. And there are a few of us that are what I would call kind of speed runners, not in a way that is a negative way, but like that became our hyper focus. That became our primary focus. Kids went with dad and did things instead of with mom and did things. You know, we
Yeah.
shifted life around for a few months, but for a few months squeeze, and then to have a degree on the other end is a really wonderful success story. And now she has resumed back to work. She has a really great new opportunity that she's pursuing, and we've stayed really close in contact following that because we work in a very similar space. And that one just like made me so proud because anyone can plan for me, but you have to go and work it, and you really do have to
Yeah.
follow through. And that is the piece that is hard for some folks, and life is happening. And, a lot of us are adult learners, and we are either in our careers, or we're parents, or we have aging parents that we're caring for as well. I mean, I see this so commonly across this demographic that seems to find their way to me. And I just encourage everyone to get in, hunker down, do it, because you can get through it really quickly if you just hunker down. And it's a short term, stretch of yourself and of your focus to be able to get a really great reward at the end. So that's one of the success stories. My other favorite success story, of course, is my daughter.
Yes. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So my daughter is a COVID high schooler, and she graduated from high school in 2021. And it was just a really hard time because she started high school in a small program, and it was a lot more focused around what her interests were. And then as COVID happened, she had to move to remote and be a remote learner. She has ADHD, and she's also on the autism spectrum. And in some ways that was a really positive thing, but in other ways it kind of meant she missed out on some of the social aspects of being a high schooler and all of those things. So for her, coming out of high school actually ended with a lot of burnout. She was trying to manage all of these things that she didn't really have the proper skill sets, and, outside of parental supports, didn't really have the right academic supports to do. And so she still graduated third of her class, which was very exciting for us as parents, but with a lot of burnout. And like, I don't want to go to college. I'm exhausted from what this high school experience felt like. And then we're in this post-COVID world of what's going on, what's happening next. And about a year and a half ago, I said, I finished my degree, I finished my master's. I said, I think you need to seriously consider this. And maybe it's not your final degree. It might just be the starting point to having a bachelor's, so that you're able to, build your own business, build a career, just have some of those foundational skill sets. And she loves psychology. And she also she has her own business. She has a pet sitting business that she's actually doing really well at. And so for me, I was like, why don't we just pair a Bachelor of Liberal Studies with business admin and psychology? Those are areas of interest for you.
Nice.
And she buckled down. At first, she drug her feet. It took a lot of mom prodding her on the Sophia side of things, but then she really did buckle down, and she was able to finish her BLS with the 2 minors in one session, which I will tell you, as her mom, I did not think was going to be a reality.
Sure.
But as the person financing her degree, yes, it's not easy for anyone. But as the person who was financing her degree, I said, you will be making this a reality. So, and she did. She finished right to the wire. We were handing in drafts and finals, right up at the draft dates and the final dates. But she did get through it, and I'm very, very, very proud of her. And now my youngest daughter is finishing up things at Sophia right now too. She's going to just do an AA for now. She wants to just get her associates, and she's doing some other career development programs locally with community college. She really likes in person. So just because it works remote for everyone, for a lot of us, doesn't mean it works for everyone. And I try to be mindful of that, she might take a different path than I took, or than her sister took.
I mean, that's an important distinction. It's not for everyone. But
right.
I think with that story, you've kind of shown that it is possible, even with barriers that might normally in a traditional school setting kind of stop someone or slow someone down.
Right. Yes. I think for my daughter, it was actually a good thing to be able to have the control over when she was working and when she was able to focus on her assignments, because she does have her own business. She needed to be able to do school at night. She was pet sitting. So all right, the dogs are calmed down. The nightly routine's done. Now I'm going to go work on school for 4 or 5 hours at nighttime and kind of get through what she needed to get through. And I'm really proud of her. Honestly, it was such an interesting glimpse into how smart my kid is. I was like, obviously I'm her mom. So she's like, Mom, does this look good? Any feedback? And honestly, I barely ever had feedback for her, having gone through some of these classes that she was going through, but not having gone through a bunch of the others. I was like, actually, I think this is really good. I think this is a 4 out of 4. You did a really great job. And that was really fun to get to just see you don't always see how academically inclined your children are. You see it in
Yeah.
little glimpses, like did they pass a test? But it was cool to see things that she created, a PowerPoint about animal behavior and all of these different things. It's just really, really neat.
That's great. And then to top it all off, you both were at commencement ceremony together,
We
which is
were, we
so
were.
cool.
Yes. I actually went back earlier this year and did an associate's degree just so I could walk in commencement with my daughter. And UMPI was so gracious, and I'm so grateful for everyone at the university. They're amazing. But they let me walk for all three of my degrees, which was really great.
That's so nice.
Yeah.
It's definitely one of the benefits of going to a smaller school. Well, Christy, this has been incredibly insightful. And I think probably a lot of people watching are a little bit more inspired, a little more excited to look into this kind of thing. For those who are thinking of taking that next step and maybe either working with you or learning more about UMPI, where's the best place for them to start?
Yes. So my website is the best place to start. It's plotted, plotted, path.com. And I do have a YouTube channel as well, which I'm sure you'll probably tag in the comments below,
Yeah.
but it's Plotted Path as well. I have a lot of videos that I've put out, and I will say, Melanie, I'm so inspired by you because I know I could be putting out so much more content, but I spend so much of my time. This is something that I do on the side, very part time. And I spend most of my time building plans, not building content. And I need to do
You're
a better
doing the
job of
real
that.
work.
Yeah, I'm doing the real work. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not talking about the work. I'm doing the work.
exactly.
But I would love to at some point be able to share more stories of some of the successes that folks have had in UMPI. And so my YouTube channel is a great starting point, just with some videos and some context. My website, I have my free degree sheet on my website linked, and it's going through some updates right now as the university goes through some updates. It is accurate. However, there are some pieces that will be changing this fall that I'll be continuing to update. And yeah, just my website is a great starting point. I'm very active in our UMPI Discord, which is linked in our UMPI subreddit. So if you're on Reddit, it's just Reddit UMPI. And then if you're in the main page of the subreddit, you can find the link to our Discord. I just want to say this. Nick, who runs the Discord, runs the Facebook group, runs the subreddit, is an alumni of UMPI. There's not probably a person who I am more grateful for than Nick, because he does so much to bring community around our student body. And especially those of us who are learning in this very worldly way where we're all spread out and scattered around the actual globe. I've helped people from probably every continent at this point. Nick is just a phenomenal person, and he is doing really amazing things to bring community around what we're doing here. And in addition to that, I'm just so appreciative to everyone who has trusted me to do their degree. I recognize that it does take trust to put this information into someone's hands and see what they make of it. And I could not be more grateful for the folks who have used me, who have referred me, who tag me in on whatever platform we're using that day and say, you need to talk to her. Like, there's nothing that's more positive reinforcement in my life than someone referring someone else to me and telling people to use my service. So thank you all so much. I really do appreciate it.
And thank you for everything you do.
Thank you.
Like you mentioned, it seems like every time the question of, what do I do? How do I plan this? What classes should I take? Every time that comes up, the question is always talk to Christy. Talk to Christy. So,
Plotted path, plotted path. And
yep,
then it's
plotted
sometimes
path.
funny when I comment on something as myself, like on Facebook, and then like people are like, talk to her, talk to her, talk to her. Like, people don't always put together that like I am the human behind Plotted Path. But I do have a picture on my website now, so
Yeah,
hopefully that helps.
that's great. Well, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today. And
Thank you.
yeah,
And thank
I
you for
wish
the
you well.
work you're doing too, Melanie. It's super helpful for people to understand what to expect as they enter back into university or enter into university for the first time. So I'm so grateful for alumni like you and like I and Nick and Greg, who is, he also helps a lot with some of the Reddits. Heather, I could shout out so many names, but We just really have such an amazing alumni network. So thank you for all you're doing too, Melanie.
My pleasure. To recap, you can find Christie at plottedpath.com or under the username plottedpath on Reddit. And I highly recommend checking out her free degree planning spreadsheet and all the resources that she has on her website or in her Reddit profile. You can find links to all of that in the YouTube description or in the podcast show notes. And if you're looking for help with the academic strategy side of things and balancing school with everything else you've got going on, you can check out more of my content here on the Degree Strategy channel and the Degree Strategy podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.